Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and today is a monumentous occasion, for I have finally caught up with Black Clover, and it is time to discuss the second part of the Spade Kingdom arc, which has been potentially the most enjoyable Black Clover story thus far. Before that though, I honestly don't know where these videos are going to go from here for Black Clover, but if you'd like to see more content on this series, then now is the time to make your voice heard by liking the video and subscribing to the New World Review, which may very well result in regular Black Clover content uploaded straight into your YouTube feed. But picking up right where we left off, this chunk of the arc takes us around middling stages and to what is the beginning of an action-packed climax. Without Yami, William, or a functional Wizard King, the Clover peeps are at a bit of a loss of how to deal with this whole Spade Kingdom issue, but luckily a mysterious character pops up out of absolutely nowhere and steals the entire series. That character, of course, being Noct. So from time to time, yes, I have found myself wondering why the Black Bulls did not have a vice captain. It did always seem a little bit strange, but I have to admit, I kind of stopped caring about that particular question mark when it became clear that the Magic Knight ranking system was all over the place and a little bit pointless. Which in a way is pretty great because it allowed Noct to take me completely by surprise. He is a fantastic addition to the story for ever so many reasons. I mean, firstly, it's hard to argue with a sleek, cool design and fascinating devil powers, as I suppose that really is the general premise of Black Clover's entire existence. But placing Noct right here and now is such perfect timing to use him as a bit of a multi-tool. Noct serves so many technical purposes in this arc, the first of which is to provide insight into the plans of the Dark Triad, as well as become the gateway to the Spade Kingdom, which is fantastic. That saves us a lot of screwing around and general cringe plan dialogue emitting from villains. But Noct also serves as a mechanism into learning more about the devils, and it even introduces us properly to our second series-stealing character. But more importantly, Noct is also able to fill the void of leadership left by Yami and even the Wizard King, to be honest, because yeah, I get it, you're there, but you're not doing anything. The point in keeping you alive still remains to be seen. Noct, on the other hand, is pretty damn functional and quite seamlessly integrated, dodging questions about where he's been prior to this by both being on a mission and the fact that he hates the Black Bulls. A bit awkward, but I also very much enjoy that his vice captaincy was decided more or less arbitrarily. It reminds me of the sort of thing that Isaac Netero would do in Hunter x Hunter by making Pariston his vice chairman, solely due to the fact that he finds Pariston annoying. Although Noct comes into this series packed with one-liners, my favorite of which was, if you don't want to be judged by the way you look, then don't look like that. Which, yeah, obviously doesn't always work depending on what we're talking about, but it is decent general life advice. I mean, for example, if you don't want people to judge you as a slob, then don't look like one. Put in 20 minutes, half an hour every day to make sure you look decent, and there, bam, good. Life successful. I like it. Noct also just has a ton of sass and a very clear belief system, which I'm not sure I've quite gotten my head around yet, but I am very fascinated by him. So I suppose we'll just have to wait for his inevitable Tabata micro flashback to get the full picture, but that works for me. And I do also like Tabata continuing his trend of naming various leader figures after light and dark, this time Noct of course being the German word for night. But Noct also brings some pretty amazing developments, with him deciding to train Asta to be the ultimate weapon, which of course brings us to Lieb. I am so glad that Asta's devil finally has a name, but we were blessed with far more than just that. We also have an entire backstory and some sense of how devil culture operates. And well, it's almost exactly the same as human culture. What a surprise. Were we the monsters all along? The answer is yes. But Lieb is basically Devil Asta, having been born without magic and becoming something of an outcast, ending up in the human realm but then still being an outcast before he met a certain Lisita, a name that I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce. And this is something that I did not come anywhere near expecting, but this is Asta's mother, allegedly? Although I should have known better. The moment that Yuno's heritage was revealed, it should have been a guaranteed deal that we would see some of Asta's heritage as well, because, well, their journeys are mirrored, and that's just how it is. With that said, I am still incredibly curious to know why Lisita abandoned Asta. That's a question we didn't even come close to answering in this flashback, actually, but I'm sure we'll get around to it eventually, because Lieb does appear to know a bit more about that matter. It was very touching to see Lieb essentially adopted, though, and I suppose it actually makes Lieb and Asta brothers in this weird trans-dimensional mother-sharing, devil-filled kind of way, which is also fantastic because this goes back to the same idea that we were generally trying to explore with the elves. The concept of putting race aside and just uniting around common interests. One example of a common interest being a generally peaceful existence, I suppose. But we now have a supercharged incarnation of that right now by forging this bond between man and devil, which will now have to work together to face these absurdly escalating threats. So yeah, let's move on to that. Noct gives us a lovely explanation of the plan regarding the 7-day advent, an idea that I really like because it presents us with this nice game style scenario where we will inevitably have have to deal with 7 waves of devils roaming this world, eventually culminating in one big bad boss devil. And yeah, I get that the plan is to stop this whole thing before that happens, but well, that feels unlikely. Oh, and Tabata does like the most Tabata thing I can think of here, by the way. He takes the time to lay out this complex and very legitimately intriguing scenario, but then when it comes time to implement it, it becomes a, that was a bit too complicated, let's just do it all now sort of affair, with Morris of the Diamond Kingdom acting as an accelerator to the plan. And I really just need to emphasize, Tabata always does stuff like this. He crafts an intricate scenario or set of rules and then almost immediately breaks them. The Magic Knight ranking system I mentioned earlier is one example where the system was put into place but then immediately rendered meaningless because the ranks weren't an accurate representation of anything tangible bar the spot of being a captain. Same thing with the magic stages as well. We have what, like 10 or 11 different stages set up and none of it matters whatsoever because everyone is pretty much already sitting at the top. And now here we have this wonderful 7-day advent system, which also doesn't matter because we're skipping that and we're just sort of doing it all right now. I mean, that's fine though, I'm used to what Black Clover is and it does result in exciting character moments at the very least. And someone we have not yet spoken about properly here would be Yuno. I'm loving his newfound rage-filled determination. It's a very refreshing take on a character who is usually capped out in the realm of apathetic magic genius. And seeing Yuno fail is the best thing that has ever happened to this character because as a result, I want to see him succeed this time. I legitimately want to. I have a desire. Whereas previously, I've never really been invested in any other Yuno fight prior to this whole Zenon affair because it was always a given that he would just win because that's Yuno and winning is what he does. But in this effort, Yuno is assisted by Langris. Ugh. Langris. But it does make sense because they are both golden Dawnies and need to combine their golden might for the sake of William, etc. and so on and so forth. But still, I was kind of hoping that the Cock Langris arc might have been the last we saw of him. Meanwhile, Noelle and Select Noelle Company have been taken in by our previous antagonist, Partry and friends, who had vanished without a trace after the reincarnation arc, but it is cool to see them here because they will sorely be needed. Also, I continue to just love Noelle in general. Within this group, she has very much become the natural leader and very much become another Asta, just slightly smarter, but full of just as much drive and ambition, which is great to see. We've got some big problems to tackle going forward though. One of which is that power in Black Clover has long since gone completely off the charts, and there is no longer really any way of quantifying how much of a threat any particular character is, except to keep saying that their power is on a completely different level to that other character's power, which was already on a completely different level in and of itself, which has already presented itself in our first 2 Devil Folk, both of whom are very cool and intimidating as hell, by the way. I love their designs, but it does get a bit tiring to consistently blow through that power ceiling. Like, we already spent, what, 30 chapters presenting the Dark Triad as completely out of the league of the Clover Kingdom, and now we immediately already have another threat to deal with that is completely out of the league of the Dark Triad. But it's not necessarily these 2 initial devils that worry me, it's the what, 8 more to come after them, because the deeper we go, the stronger the devils become. So at every new gate, we're going to have to do the same thing. These new devils are on a completely different level to the previous devils, who were on a completely different level to the other devils, who were on like a wow, completely different level to the other devils, who were on a completely different level to the Dark Triad, who were on a completely different level to Zagrid, who was on a completely different level to Licht, who was on a completely different level to the Clover Kingdom in general, and so on and so forth. It's a very classic shonen trap that many authors fall into, and it's done as an easy way to escalate the drama of the situation, which, yeah, it's working out pretty well here in all fairness, but it is certainly becoming very hard to see this climax ending in anything but a sort of ridiculous show of unearned power from our protagonist, or via some sort of Deus Ex Machina. That or we do both and we just throw Mereoleona at them. I am so glad she's back, and actually inviting her to the party is by far the best thing that Nacht has done for Black Clover. And while there are all sorts of other intriguing things happening here and there, it's difficult to put any of that into perspective at the moment because this is the limit of what we have to work with. From here on out, Black Clover is a weekly experience, and I'm sure that we have a long way to go before this arc comes anywhere near close to ending. But I would like to take this opportunity to say that Black Clover to this point has been a great journey. I very much delayed reading Black Clover because, well, let's be honest, it doesn't have the greatest of impressions in the wider anime and manga fanbase. I kept hearing about how bad the anime was and just consistent shitting on the series itself in general, so naturally I put it off. And while I can't speak for the anime because I still haven't seen any of it, such comments regarding the manga are complete nonsense. In a way, Black Clover is the perfect example example of a well-crafted modern shonen series. It's certainly not the greatest that history has to offer, but also not everything needs to be. In fact, when you think about it, at any given time, only one thing can actually be that. So what happens to everything else? They are rendered meaningless? Definitely not. My mantra whilst reading Black Clover has always been to just sit back and enjoy whatever it is that comes my way, which I feel like has worked out pretty well. Tabata is an absolute genius with crafting, implementing, and exploring characters in particular. I can't even count the amount of primary and secondary figures we've been introduced to, but I can say that I do legitimately care for the large majority of them because Tabata has found a way to make me do so, and that is not at all an easy thing to accomplish. And yes, I do have criticisms, like a lot of criticisms, some of which are bigger than others, but another one would be that the world is pretty poorly built. I really do wish we took some time to thoroughly explore cultures and give context to locations, because for example, right now, pretty much the only thing I know about the Spade Kingdom is that it's very cold there, so cold that it's snowing. Currently, that is its only unique distinguishing characteristic. And it's the same for the others as well. With the Heart Kingdom, all I know is that it's more natural. With the Diamond Kingdom, I don't know, I guess they like rocks. And when it comes to the Clover Kingdom, our home, well, it doesn't feel like anything but a super standard cut and paste location. Having said all of that though, does it even matter? Well, you can very easily say no, it doesn't. Not everything needs to be this encyclopedic masterpiece of world building, and the same can be said for, I guess, every other criticism I've brought up during the series, because in the end, absolutely none of those things made me want to drop Black Clover. From the very get-go, I was on board with Yelling Boy's quest to become the thing that I did not and still do not truly understand, but there is a ton of magic in Black Clover, courtesy of Tabata's grimoire. Heavily underrated magic that people really should just, shut up and experience, because in the end, it is worth it. So while the series is unlikely to be remembered very well, if at all in manga history, it will at the very least be remembered by me for providing just a ton of fun experiences. That's kind of it, and that's all it ever needs to be in order to keep me satisfied. So thank you all for graciously coming on this journey with me, and I hope that each and every one of you continue to enjoy Black Clover as well. But what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more Black Clover content, then please do check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for very, maybe regular Black Clover goodness delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.